When you think about porn, it's just performance. That all it is a show. And so we get good at putting on a show almost at work because we learn the routines and what works, but that doesn't work in a relationship. Those people that we see online that are performing in porn aren't in relationships, but because so many men grow up with porn, because I mean, it's on our phones, right? On our computers, we think, oh, this is what it is. That's all a fantasy. That's not real. And so the real relationship where the best sex happens is when you're authentic, when you're vulnerable, when you're transparent.
Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. Now, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we also believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I am so grateful and I'm humbled that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. Listen, today we've got another incredible episode for you, so let's get into it. Well, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, everyone. I'm so excited about today's episode with Joe and Krissy. They are the founders of The Married Life, which is a ministry dedicated to helping Christian couples build fun, strong, and faithful marriages. They've been married for nearly 16 years and together over 20. They bring real, raw, and biblical insight into what it takes to thrive in marriage, not just survive. With over 100,000 followers and more than 2.5 million views across all platforms, their message is resonating with couples around the world. Through their YouTube channel, their podcast, and their coaching programs, Joe and Krissy equip couples with practical tools to improve communication, deepen intimacy, and build a Christ-centered relationship. They are the creators of the Blueprints of Marriage course and the Married Life Marriage Advanced Coaching Program. I just want to get that right. Designed specifically for high-capacity couples who are successful in business but want to win in marriage as well. As pastors and parents of four, Joe and Krissy speak to the real challenges modern couples face, always pointing them back to God's design for marriage. And if you're listening today and you're not a person of faith, that's okay. A lot of the rules and a lot of the principles we follow in marriage are actually biblical, anyways. Surprise, surprise. But whether you are a person of faith or not, you are going to draw a ton of great gold from this episode, and I'm confident in that. So, hey, Joe and Krissy, thank you so much for joining me on the Dad Nation podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's jump in. I know the first question is usually to be expected, but everyone wants to know who you are. Everyone wants to know your story. So tell us a little bit about like your journey, like, what made you kind of start all this? Because at one point you weren't telling people about how to have a great marriage. At one point you weren't helping people. So what made you get into this industry and this space?
Well, we've known each other since we were in seventh grade and didn't start dating until high school. And it was a horrible relationship. I was a partier through high school, through college. We'd get together. Um, we got together while I was dating somebody else and she was dating somebody else. And so it didn't start off on a good note.
It's a really great recipe for a relationship.
Right. And then when we're dating, I was so selfish, not caring about her emotions, where she was at. There were so many times that I would cheat on her, not care, but then try to win her back, and just a horrible cycle. Anyways, fast forward, we did that for a number of years. Just we were the couple that people enjoyed being with when we weren't together. It's like, oh, good, Krissy's here. Oh, crap, here comes Joe. Oh, good, Joe's here. Oh, crap, here comes Krissy. Like, it's like we were just like so toxic. So, for anyone listening that's like, hey, my relationship, we are just struggling. We've been there. We've been on the struggle bus. And then we, my mom was a follower of Christ. She still is. She would make us go to church every Sunday. When people would stay at my house and party, it's like on Saturday night partying, Sunday morning, you're going to church, hungover, smelling like alcohol, all the stuff. And one of those times when I cheated on Krissy and we're broken up and she hates me, she went to church with my mom for the 9 a.m. service. And I had to go to the 11 a.m. and I walk in hungover. And as she's walking out, I could tell just from her demeanor that she gave her life to Christ. And I was just like, I grew up in and out of the church. I've had those moments with God experiences. I knew I loved her. I just didn't know how to express like actual what love was because I loved myself more than her because I was so selfish. And so seeing that, I just started going on a journey and pursuing Jesus myself. And that's what she did. And through Christ, we were able to be friends again. That led to us actually hanging out again, which led to dating again, which led to getting married. And fast forward, I think it was about 5 or 6 years into our marriage, because we came from such a horrible relationship. As soon as we started like taking it seriously, we started getting coaching, we started getting counseling, we started reading books, we started investing in ourselves. And so 5, 6 years into our marriage, we're like, we've been learning a lot about marriage. We should start sharing this with the people. And so we literally were in Florida on vacation. We were on a date
Hmm.
overlooking a lake, and we just pulled out our iPhone and opened the voice memo app and recorded our first podcast ever, just going back and forth with our phone. And that just started something that has just snowballed into like what you said, almost 3 million total views across all of our platforms and coaching people, doing podcasts, doing videos, doing conferences, doing marriage cruises. We're doing our second marriage cruise this year out of California where we hit up Catalina and Ensenada. And every morning we do a little what's it called? I guess like a workshop. And then it's like, hey, just enjoy your spouse. Just go and have fun with your spouse. So yeah, it snowballed from our failures and pain pushed us into our purpose.
Hmm. I love that. Anything to add from you, Chrissy?
Well, I mean, he made himself sound really bad in our relationship before
I was
Jesus.
really bad.
And you're accurate.
I
That's
hate
right.
old Joe.
But I was also crazy. And so I just remember like doing things it's like too embarrassing to even say. Um and just after knowing Christ, the renewing of your mind that had to happen, like I'm not that person anymore. And so even just listening to you say where we came from, it's kind of like a reminder because it's so long ago. But I remember being crazy as well, and so, like he said, if you're listening and you feel stuck in those cycles, like, we get it. It is hard, but we got ourselves out of it, and so be encouraged.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so interesting. Every single person that I talk to, especially about marriage, who's doing something great, has come from a very difficult past, right? And so that tension of the struggle and how that trash becomes something, well, that trash becomes treasure, something beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, one of the couples I had on, this is last year. It all started when she punched him in the face and gave him a black eye, and then they decided at that point they needed to turn their life around, and now they have this hugely successful podcast and coaching company where they walk with other couples, and it's incredible. But it doesn't come, without that sort of
Yeah.
tension and struggle, right? So,
I didn't throw a punch, but I did throw a phone at his face at one point,
Yep.
and I
mm,
missed. I was so mad.
And then the phone
mm.
broke and you got to buy a new phone because this dummy.
Okay. I know you guys talk a lot about intimacy, about sex, all that kind of stuff. And so I know that we're gonna have so much to talk about today, and I wish I had like like 4 hours to do this, but realistically we can't. So I do want to jump into a couple things about intimacy because, and the reason why is because a lot of the men that I talk to are high performing men in work and business, entrepreneurs, started companies, you name it. And they've been successful. And what happens is the more they dig into work, the more disconnected they feel at home. And no joke, like some of the guys I talk to have been saying like it's been years since I've been intimate with my wife,
Mm.
right? I don't actually even know how to do like I don't even know how to like come onto her anymore, I can't remember the last time I had a kiss, and these are like ultra successful people, which, on the outside, you would look at them and think, look at it all together, man. They got the life, you know, and so the extreme success in the career or in the professional, but just failure in the personal, right? And so and I'd love for you both to kind of maybe, Krissy, you can answer this from a woman's perspective, and Joe, you can answer this from a man's perspective if you want. I don't want to tell you how to answer the question, but you do your thing. Um, but why do you think that happens with men, and why do you think that happens in relationship? Like as you see sort of that seed that gets planted and it spirals and spirals, because you don't just wake up and having all kinds of great sex and then the next day it just
Mhm.
you stop, right? It's a slow fade. And so why do you think that happens in these scenarios in couples' lives?
You wanna go?
You go first.
Okay. So for the guys, I mean, it's really easy. Most men are scoreboard driven. And so when we are in the boardroom, we are getting accolades, we're getting promotions, we're getting data boys, we're getting pats on the back. And so we know, okay, I'm going to keep doing this over and over and over again, right? And I'm going to keep working my way up the ladder. In marriage, in the bedroom, you could have an awesome night of sex, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow she wants you to do the exact same thing. You could come home with flowers and it gets her in the mood or a gift or whatever, but it doesn't work the next day because she's a human being. It's not a corporation that is running like a machine. And so when we learn how to have healthy um, growth at our organization, we learn how like, okay, if I do A, I'm going to get result B. If I do C, I'm going to get result D, right? Like we understand that as men and we try to apply that to our relationship, not understanding that your success isn't sexy to her. Your vulnerability is what's sexy to her. And
Mm.
Chrissy tells me this all the time. She's like, "You work out for your buddies. Like you guys care about your muscles." She's like, "I don't." What Chrissy cares about and what turns her on is me being vulnerable, authentic, real, humble, personable. Because here it is, men. Like she's seen you naked. You you ain't impressing her. You know what I mean? Like she's like, listen, I've seen your dirty drawers. Like I know you. So stop trying to come in like the dude in the boardroom who's trying to get the promotion. She wants you to be real, and that's where
Mm.
you actually have an authentic and a good sex life. Because if not, you're just put on a show, and that's just pornography.
Mm.
What say you?
Wow.
I agree with that 100%.
Sorry,
Because it
sorry to jump in. I just can we just go back to that line you just said? Um, this isn't the boardroom and this isn't performance. And if it was, it's just porn. It's just porn. How did you say that? Can you say that again? Because I think a lot of men fall into that trap.
Yeah. When you think about porn, it's just performance. That all it is a show. And so we get good at putting on a show almost at work because we learn the routines and what works, but that doesn't work in a relationship. Those people that we see online that are performing in porn aren't in relationships, but because so many men grow up with porn, because I mean, it's on our phones, right? On our
Mhm,
computers, on we think, oh, this is what it is. That's all a fantasy. That's not real.
mhm.
And so the real relationship where the best sex happens is when you're authentic, when you're vulnerable, when you're transparent.
Hey, I promise we're going to get back to this episode, but I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a free marriage course that I'm offering, no charge, and it's called Remodel Your Marriage. And it's a 4-step blueprint to understanding your wife, keeping your cool, and getting the fire back in your marriage. And in this course, we're going to dig into the 4 foundations that every successful couple understands well. And that's number 1, how to love each other well. Number 2, how to feel and how to communicate how you feel, how to communicate through conflict. Number 3 is how to fight fair and how to fight well. And then number 4 is how to have fun and to break out of that routine of becoming just really great roommates. And so if you're watching this and maybe you would say that your marriage is feeling a little stale, maybe needs a little remodeling or refreshing, all you need to do is head to dadnationco.com/remodel for that free course for you, my friend. I put a lot of time and energy into it, and I believe that it can help you transform your marriage. I believe in the marriage model. I believe in you and your marriage, my friend. All right, let's get back to the episode. Mm, that's so good. Just before we jump forward, I was talking to this. I actually had this exact same conversation with one of my clients who successful man leads 1,200 staff, you name it. And he was like, I just don't understand why she doesn't, get this thing. And he's just like hammering it down. And and I said, listen, man, how many people in your company are you sleeping with? And he was like, none. I was like, so would it be fair to say that your relationship with your wife is very, very different than your relationship with everyone else that you work with? He's like, yeah, yeah. So I said, well, why are you using the same principles
Yep.
with your staff in this on this woman who you have an entirely different relationship with, that
Mhm.
you're intimate with, that you're
Come on.
vulnerable with, and all those? It just doesn't work.
No.
You're
And
ramming the square peg into a circle hole. Anyways, I just wanted to add that because it was a powerful conversation, and I think we do that. Like you
We
said,
do.
I affirm that, man. We apply a boardroom sort of presence and whatever to the bedroom, right? And it
Yep.
just doesn't work. Sorry to cut you off,
Well
Chrissy. You jump in.
and I was gonna say, because then what can happen is your business, your boardroom, your ministry becomes your mistress.
Mm.
And so because you spend, like, we talk about this with couples, like, your spouse should be the greatest book you ever read. You're always studying her, she's always studying you. You're getting better. And again, because we don't learn that in school, we learn keep bettering ourselves for business, right? Keep bettering ourselves for ministry, whatever it is. Entrepreneurial, like I'm starting different things, whatever that is. So we're trying to better there, and that thing, because we're investing so much time into it, actually has our heart more than our spouse, and so that thing will become our mistress.
Mhm.
And that's like what you were just saying. That's why I have to, I mean, there's this book. Oh, what is that book called? Um, I can't even think what it's called. Anyways, has to do with um high level CEOs and learning habits and all these things, how successful people act. And one of the things that highly successful people do is they learn how to take off the work hat and put on the family hat, right? And so making sure that when you come home, I'm checked into you and I'm checked out of work, because if not, it's just nonstop.
Mhm.
But what would you
Yeah.
say to that question? Because we've been going
Mhm.
on.
No, it's good. All the things you're saying is correct, but I think men need to understand that, we are wired so differently than men that even when you try your very best to, um, be really good at the performance, you're like, "No, I'm doing the right things." I think we have such a sense of discernment as women that we know when it's fake. And so, I don't know how, I can't tell you, but just knowing and understanding that, like, I am not you, and that's a good thing.
Mhm.
Like, men make really great logical decisions, but sometimes you have to understand our perspective of, like, the emotional part of it. When you talk about that, like, gut instinct, that's like your discernment, and women have it, and we feel it, we can see it. I tell him all the time, um if there's, like, something going on, or if there's, like, a woman that I'm like, "She's
Mm.
got wrong motives. She's done nothing wrong." Like, this has probably happened a handful of times in our marriage. In ministry, I'm just like, I don't like her." Not that I don't like her, I don't like the motives. And so, I have no idea why. But just listening to those things within us as women, we can sense it in our husbands. And so when it isn't authentic and it isn't real, we know it.
Mhm.
And so, like you're saying, you got to take the hat off every day. You got to take the hat off. And I know sometimes that that's not like feasible for you. Like our life is a little crazy and it intermixes with, it's not a 9 to 5. It doesn't work like that. But like when you're here, you're here. And when you're not, that's okay. And so, but day in and day out, for the most part, we feel that and we know it and we can discern it.
Mm. Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intuition, right?
Yeah.
Be where your feet are is what I find myself saying a lot to men. Is like y'all go to work, you run the business, and you end up thinking about home. And you come home and you think about the business.
Mhm.
It's like, just show up where you are. Wherever you are, there you should be,
Yep.
right?
Mm.
I mean,
And
there
that's, of course, the $1,000,000 question is, how do I do that, right?
right. Because there is, we read it before in a book, so I don't know if this is considered a statistic or just a fact, that majority of your day you spend thinking about either the past or the future, and you can't be present.
It's 58 minutes out of every hour.
There it is.
Mhm.
That you're thinking about other things versus where you're at. So just like you said, be where your feet enjoy those moments. Enjoy those moments with your spouse, enjoy those moments with your kids. And when you're at work, enjoy those moments. But when the workday's over, like, I mean, you know how it is. Like my list is not like we don't have a to-do list. It's a to never end list, right? Like it's never finished. And so if I'm like, well, I'm just gonna work later tonight and I'm just gonna do this and this, that's gonna happen every single night. And then you're
Mhm.
gonna wonder why your marriage drifts. And it's
Mhm.
because again, you're investing in work, but not your marriage.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. So, we're talking a little bit about presence and all those different things and just ways that we try to program the success, if you will. That's pretty, as how we show up in the boardroom, we're trying to replicate that, in the bedroom. But, what are some other ways that, whether it's in your own personal lives or in, observations you've made of couples you've walked with, that men, we'll just ask men or about men because it's mostly men who are listening. What are ways that they kind of self sabotage intimacy in their marriage or in their relationship that you've seen?
Uh, not taking the initiative, not investing in yourself, not being the leader that you were created to be. We were doing a coaching call a couple weeks ago with a guy, and one of his struggles is just he's just passive. And his wife, who is actually in I think it's the Air Force Reserves. Maybe it's not the Air Force, but it's a reserve. And so I'm just having the conversation. I'm like, man, you're trying to lead a strong woman, right? And you're sounding passive and not confident. He's like, that's exactly what she says. I was like, as men, we have to be confident, like, and so again, that's investing in ourselves because as much as I want to invest in the marriage, I have to invest in myself to strengthen the marriage. That's why, like, like I have a routine, wake up in the morning, having my devotional time, reading the Bible, praying, go to the gym, get home, jump in a cold plunge, and wait for my family to wake up. Because if I don't take care of myself first, how can I take care of them?
Mm.
Because again, then I'm going to be stealing that time later on in the day from Chrissy or from my kids because now I need to invest in myself. And I saw this video recently and they were just talking about how, like if we all have a pitcher of water, right? And we have family, we have self, we have wife, we have hobbies, we have work, and maybe there's something else. But that pitcher of water can only hold so much water. And as you're pouring it in, there's always a cup that's going to be left empty. And what can happen for us men is a lot of times we are pouring that pitcher more into the work cup than into the self-development cup so then I can pour into my wife, into my kids, and then into the work. And so again, it's the prioritizing like what matters most in our life. And like cuz Chrissy says this all the time, like your marriage is your lifelong assignment. Even your kids aren't.
Mhm.
They you're raising like Chrissy says this. Tell them what you say about we're not raising kids.
We're raising adults.
Yeah.
I'm not raising kids to be kids their whole life. Like, my job is to raise them to be adults, but just to go off of what you're talking about, it's like our marriage is our greatest assignment. Your hobbies will change over your lifetime.
Mm.
Maybe not your career, but your job. You'll get different jobs. You might get a whole different career. I think there's a new statistic for like, uh, they're not, what's after millennials?
Gen Z.
Gen Z's.
Whatever. They will change their careers 7 times in their life. Not a job, but a career. And so it's like and like he said, your kids are gonna grow up and they're gonna start their own families. Your marriage is the longest assignment you will ever have in your whole life.
Mm.
And so why wouldn't you pour into it?
It's good. Mhm. Yeah, sometimes when people ask me, like, "What do you want your son to know?" And I say, when he gets older, and I say, "I want him to know that he's number 2 to my wife,"
Mhm.
And everyone's like, "Oh, you can't say that. You can't. That's not nice." I'm like, "Hey, the best thing I can do is teach this man how to love a woman,
That's right.
and the
100%.
only way I can do that is to model it.
That's
So,
right.
Come on.
yeah,
So good.
love that. Anything else to share? I mean, but I do think what you said there about being insecure or, investing in yourself,
Mhm.
becoming confident, becoming, yeah, it's just confident in yourself as a man, as a husband, as a father. And I think, and my listeners will have heard me say this a lots of times now, but we our self-confidence erodes because we break promises to ourselves, right?
Yep.
And so what's the best way to rebuild self-confidence is to make promises and follow through and keep them,
Oh, that's
right?
good.
And to
100%.
rebuild rapport with yourself. Because
So
what
good.
happens is you say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this today, and you don't follow through.
Right.
And then you think, well, no one knows. It's just me. It's just a promise I made to myself. But the subconscious mind knows, you
Yep.
know? And so what begins to happen is that narrative changes and you lose rapport with yourself. And then your mind starts saying things like, why would anyone else trust me if I can't trust myself to follow through
Right.
on anything?
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And then that starts to affect how you show up in your marriage, how you show up as a father, how you show up in the boardroom, how you show
Mhm.
up, and then you become passive and insecure. You start questioning everything. And then that begins to rob you of intimacy in your relationship. But at the end of the day, I'm like, man, what small promise can you make today and keep it to start restoring your relationship with yourself? That's why we call it self-confidence,
Mhm.
right?
So good.
So, sorry,
Well,
I'm went on a
you
rant.
even saying that is, like, I'm sure you've read the book or heard the book at least, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's like an instant classic. And we share that with so many people that we coach, that we lead, because really it's like you're the one that has to form these habits and these disciplines in your life. And I love what he talks about. He's like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your disciplines.
Mhm,
And so if we don't have discipline set up in our life, we're going to constantly fail and fall. And that's why New Year's resolution, what is it, like by day 20, like most of them are failed out the window, all the different things. And why a lot of people are like, I don't even want to try. But this is what I love that James Clear talks about. He's like, you don't have to make these grandiose goals. I was actually just telling somebody from our church this the other day. She was just sharing that she has like literally three things that she's like, I'm just struggling. Waking up early to read my Bible, to journal. She's like, I always just journal. She's like, and I got this weight vest, and I want to just walk with a weight vest a mile, 2 miles, whatever it is. I said, well, here's the thing. I said, we can hold you accountable to it. I said, but don't focus on 2 miles at a time. Focus on just putting on the weight vest and maybe just walking one block, maybe just walking the driveway length. That's it. Because that's where James Clear talks about when you can do that over a period of time, you're creating that habit of, well, I got my weight vest on and I went one block. I'm going to go another block now. And then all of a sudden, because you've done that for a week or two, now I'm going to go another block. And then eventually you hit that mile goal that you're shooting for. But oftentimes people are like, well, I'm going to do the mile today. And you try to go run a mile. If I work out 5 to 6 days a week. If I tried to run a mile today, I would be dying because I don't run. I hate cardio. Um, I don't run. But if I'm like, well, I'm just going to run X amount per day and I'm going to build up to that, within a month I could do it, you know? And so
mhm,
sometimes we like what you just said, we kill our confidence because we expect to be hitting these goals like here, but we haven't been practicing, we haven't been putting in the right steps, we haven't been getting there. And so it's just forming habits and disciplines. But I think that's what's important, what you do, what we do, helping coach people. Everybody needs a coach. You
mhm,
look at the greatest. You look, Michael Jordan had a coach. Tom Brady had a coach. You look, I mean, maybe you're a LeBron fan. He had multiple coaches. He was going from team to team to team. But the greatest have coaches. And so why do we think in marriage we don't need a coach? Why do we think in what it is to like truly be a man, like what you're doing, like to be that dad, to be the businessman, to be the husband, like that we don't need a coach. We need somebody pointing us in the right direction so we can hit those milestones.
mm. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, and it's not popular for coaches to say, but if you're not meeting your goals, lower them, right? No, that's not that doesn't make for great Instagram content. But if you're not meeting your goals, lower them.
Yep.
Make a goal you can actually meet,
That's
right?
achievable, right?
Because what happens is when you finally do break out of that, mindset and that insecurity and say, no, 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 I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to do this. And you set a goal that's too great and then you fail to meet it, then that reinforces that negative self-narrative and says,
Mhm.
because remember, the brain is always trying to make sense of what's going on around it, and then it uses that to say, "See, told you couldn't do it."
Yep.
And then you actually take 2 steps back, right?
Mhm.
So I'm like, actually, guys, making high, like, big goals, that are not strategic, that are not, achievable, is actually more dangerous than making no goals at all, because of the fact that it ends up sending people deeper into the rut because it reinforms that negative self-belief,
Yep.
right? Which is fascinating how the brain works, but, um, yeah, love it. Anything for you to add, Chrissy, as he's talking? I know he's doing a lot of talking. He's obviously the preacher
What was the
between you 2.
question?
How do you see men self-sabotaging intimacy in their relationships? What are things they do?
Um, I mean, you guys really hit on it. I think my husband loves me well because he does pour so much into himself, and so it's an overflow of what, he's doing for himself. I get the overflow of it, which is normally the best of it anyways, right? And so, not forgetting that, not people think it's selfish to take care of yourself first, and it's not. And so,
It's selfish not to take care of yourself at all.
right, and my kids see it, my kids get the best of him, and the church gets the best of him, and so, yeah, it's creating those habits, and we talk about it like it's easy, but it's not.
Mm.
It's not easy, and so, I fully support it too. I think if husbands are listening, like, understanding and letting your wife know, like, these things. Because when you let your wife in to what you're doing, number 1, it's accountability, right? Because I know if my husband tells me something, he's gonna do it because he doesn't wanna disappoint me. But I feel like a lot of guys just wanna, like, do it, and if they disappoint themselves, kinda like what you said, it's kinda like, "Oh, well, nobody knows about it." But then also, like, I'm brought in, like, "Yeah, I wanna support you in this, like, I wanna be a part of this, let me support you in this too," and so, you guys are a team, let your wife in, and I think you'll be
Yeah.
less likely to self-sabotage.
Yeah. I think even when it comes to self-sabotage, when it comes to let's just, like, actually talk about, like, sex, is that, again, when men avoid the emotional conversations, you're self-sabotaging because most of the time you desire physical contact, she desires emotional contact. So if you're not willing to connect emotionally, she's gonna stop connecting physically. And what happens, and we run into this all the time with coaching, is that people are waiting for the other person to give in.
Uh-huh.
But really, men, she's not gonna give in physically until you give in emotionally. So really for you to start giving in emotionally, then you're gonna see the physical happen. But also, we have to understand we can't treat sex like a transaction.
Yep.
Again, that goes back to then it's just porn. Then it's just prostitution. And you're not prostituting your wife. You're not just trying to get a transaction from your spouse. It's a connection. Sex is a connection. And then also, what you said earlier, it's so true. You think different than me. I can't assume that you think the same way. And that's why we have conversations when it talks about sex, like, "Hey, how many time a week do you think we should have sex?" versus me. Me, it's 7 times a week, 2 times a day, you know? And for Chrissy, it's like, "That's not practical." She's like, "You realize we have kids and a job, right?" And so we have to get on the same page of what does that look like. And then even when we're going through things emotionally, as hormones are changing, as schedules change, we actually started a calendar where we're like, okay, there's certain days she initiates, there's certain days I initiate sex. Because and she even at first she's like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
No.
Because she thought, what did you think?
I just know you. Like, when he puts his mind to something, it's happening. And I'm like, "So what happens when I don't when I know it's my turn, you know it's my turn to initiate, and I don't? I know you're gonna be disappointed." Or what if on your day you want to initiate and, like, I have had a really awful day and I'm, like, exhausted, right? And so we had to have that conversation just because I know him. He is so determined, and when he locks in, that's it. And so that was a hard conversation that we had to have, but it's been good.
I think it's been great. Um, because I told her, I said, "So here's the caveat. She thinks that. But as men, and I don't know if you other guys feel this way, when when Chrissy, if Chrissy just touches my shoulder a little bit, if she just squeezes my butt a little bit, if she just like, like, I don't know, just gazes at me a little longer, I'm like, ooh, tonight's a good night. But then nothing happens. That's when my disappointment, like, drops. And so for us actually saying, "Hey, we're gonna put a calendar together," because then it's like, if it's your night to initiate and you're not in the mood, you're sick, whatever, like, I'm not disappointed because you initiate. But when I know it's my nights, like, I mean, I think for the most part, I initiate on my nights, except if I'm sick or absolutely exhausted, but then we just move it to another night. But for us, it's those conversations. Now here, and this is something we, like we even have for all of our YouTube videos, we always put out a PDF, which is just a sex conversation starter. Cause some people are like, hey, we're having great sex. I want to bring in new things, right? I want to try something else. And what can you do to keep the relationship healthy? Like Chrissy and I, we teach this, like you can bring anything into the bedroom except other people or animals. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't we go with animals. It's yeah. But and other people's digital also, like, don't bring porn in the bedroom, don't bring other people, don't be swingers, don't try any of that stuff. But anything else, having the conversation if you're open to it. And so that's like even, this guide we give. Now, some people though, they're like what you said, I'm just trying to figure out how to kiss my wife. I'm trying to figure out how do we have sex in just once a month, right? And so we try to give like a questionnaire to just to open in the conversation, to have those conversations with each other. But guys, I would tell you one thing that I do every day when I go to work, and I read this, um, that when you kiss your spouse for 6 seconds, it has to be 6 seconds before you leave for work, before you leave for the day, whatever it is, the amount of endorphins that it releases in the brain and creates a sexual connection that I tell Chrissy, I'm like, when we kiss, like if she just pecks me by, I'm like, no, that wasn't 6 seconds. And literally we do a 6-second kiss every morning before I go to work. And it doesn't mean we're having sex that night. It's just the connection because there's no one else that I'm kissing for 6 seconds. And
Or at all.
I was thinking my kids,
Oh.
like,
Like, wait a minute.
like even the kids, like I'm not kissing them for 6 seconds unless, like sometimes your 4-year-old, I mean, you know how
Mhm.
it is, like with a little, they want to hold like longer. And really our 4-year-old does that to you.
Yeah.
We'll do this thing where I'm like, I'm gonna kiss mommy, and I'm like going, and he's like, no, and he tries to jump in there and like grabs her head and like
Or
kisses her.
like get head butted or something.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of kisses.
Mhm.
Wow, love that 6-second kiss. Yeah, one of our mentors, marriage mentors early on in our marriage said 12 seconds. So,
Oh,
which is like real spicy.
that,
Like, I
That's
don't know
that
if
I
I'm
was like,
ready.
You're
by
getting
12
some
seconds,
tonight.
I was just at 12 seconds, you're at least getting some tongue in there.
I don't know if I'm going to work at that point.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Like, that's it. That's what Chrissy, she'll be like, "Can we just make out?" I'm like, "I don't know how to just make out." Like, when I was a teenager, yeah, but now, no.
I don't really, yeah, I don't, I
The
know.
days are over.
It's so true. I'm like, what's the point? I
But
don't really. It's like you want to go for a
Intimacy.
walk.
Intimacy is the point.
Yeah, I know. I get it. But I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes this is
Oh, we
not a
get
thing.
that.
My wife would be like, she'd be like, you want to go for a walk? And be like, to where?
So where?
What's the mission? What's the objective? Where's the end goal? How do I know that I completed this task? It's like, I
Mhm.
don't care, okay, where we'll walk. Let's just walk. I'm like, aimlessly walk? What? So and again, it's the masculine mind, or it's how we work. It's
Yes.
like
Mhm.
we must accomplish, we must
Right.
complete, we must,
Oh.
you
Yeah.
know, love
Well,
it.
now even for us, we do this thing after dinner. We like to go for walks, and we live right down the road from a park, and so we'll walk to the park, walk around this baseball field and stuff. But the mission now is, well, we just ate, so we want to burn off some of these calories, and also, as you have more kids, we need a break from our kids, and we just need some time alone. So the mission is run from the kids. Now I say that just kidding, because usually they end up following us anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it works when more kids start coming out.
Hey, we're going to get back to the episode, but while I have you here, I wanted to ask you, would you consider helping a brother who's struggling in his life right now? Maybe it's a guy searching the internet to help save his marriage, his health, or his family. Maybe it's a man that's just behind you on this journey. And we know, statistically speaking, there are thousands of men doing this, and we know that there are probably men in your social circles that are struggling with some of these very same things. If you'd be willing to help, this is how you can help, and I promise it'll take less than 60 seconds. If you've gotten any value from this podcast so far, would you be willing to give us an honest review and subscribe to our channel, whatever channel you're listening on? If you want to take this to the next level, would you consider sending this link to a friend of yours who you know would benefit from listening to this show? Now, why would you do that? Because the more men that hear this content, the more marriages we can save, the more fathers we can help step up, and the more lives that we can change forever. This isn't just for the men. This is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come. So I want to say thank you so much for doing your part to help other men find the support that they need. Now let's get back to it. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I know we're right now, like my time, or 10:22. Do you guys have a few more minutes, or
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you're good?
Yeah.
Because there's just a couple more things I'd like to ask you about, um, uh, but yeah, no, this has been so insightful. Krissy, can I ask you a question just about around being a woman who's married to a man who's very driven, who's very motivated, who's very, like you said, he just shows up, he turns on when he's work mode. It's there's nothing he commits to, he doesn't complete. What would you say, to women who may be listening, or even to men who might feel like they're not understood or not heard or whatever, to encourage them in that situation? Because I know there are a lot of men who are like, I feel like my wife just doesn't understand me, right? She
Mhm.
doesn't understand my drive, my intensity, my passion for work, my passion to build, to create, to, you name it. And whether we're
Yeah.
talking about businesses, whether we're talking about ministry, whether we're talking about whatever, um, generally speaking, high performing men, high capacity men, career driven men, whatever you want to call them, can be hard to live with, especially men who are really have this value on taking care of themselves. Because now, not only do they need to work on the business or whatever, they need to take care of their body, they need to take care of their mind, and pour into themselves. And so, how do you, as a wife, sort of navigate that with that tension of also wanting his time and wanting time with the family, with the kids and all? How do you sort of process through that? Can you give us some insight?
Well, I think number 1, your your identity does not come from your husband, and I think that's what a lot of women struggle with, is that he is to complement you. And what I've seen is women want so much from their husband, which is a good thing, but not everything. My identity is not in my husband. I love that my husband loves me well, but that is not where it comes from. I am not ultimately loved by my husband. I am loved by the Father. I we when we do our courses, we give each individual like a sheet that it basically gives you the identity of an orphan and the identity of like a son or a daughter of God. And we ask people to go through that and really identify, like, be honest and fill it out, and it'll tell you if you have an orphan spirit or if you are a true son and daughter. So I'll just say daughter because that's what we're talking about. Are you a daughter of God? Because this high driven man that is working and building, that is biblical. That is how God created them to be. And so we should be their number one cheerleader, because what's the opposite? It's the passive man that he was just talking about. And oh my gosh, that is the worst. To look at your man every day and be like, do something. Like, be passionate about anything. Like, just go do something. Because we deal with those women too. And my heart goes out to them. I don't know if I could do that. I can do this all day long. But to live with a passive man that I can't get off the couch or and whatever. And so I think the reality is, do you identify as an orphan or do you truly identify as um, a daughter? Because that's probably where a lot of the frustration is coming from. I'm looking for validation, I'm looking for completion from my husband, and I'm
Mm,
not getting it. But I will say this is that there does need to be a balance with the husband. If it is all work, because if the marriage is sexless, if they're not spending family time and they're not doing all the things that we actually do need as women and as the kids need, right? That can be frustrating too, but those things can be fixed because I mean, think about it. I did a whole sermon on what a nagging wife looks like. Look up the phrase nagging wife in the Bible. You're going to find like 30 scripture. Maybe not that many, maybe 20. Read it,
mm,
right? And so maybe they're nagging out of the orphan spirit versus, being this like cheerleader that they're supposed to be. And just really self-evaluate. Don't always like point the finger at your husband like you need to do more. Look at everything I do. Yeah, we do a lot as women. We really do. But the reality is, it's like we're made for it. We're made like I say, like clean the house and take care of the house. But the reality is, it's hospitality.
mm.
Like that is our heart. Men could care less about hospitality. Like grab a pizza, grab some bottled waters, and we're good. No, we want to take things and we want to make it beautiful because we care about the way people feel when they come into our home. And so don't expect your husband to do that and be that,
Mm,
right? And lower the expectations on yourself. If that's what's like frustrating you, then don't do it. Stop doing it because nobody else cares but you.
Well, and also we were just talking about
mm.
that, how before kids, our house was so organized.
It was so organized, and I loved to throw these, like, extravagant, like, dinner parties, and I loved making all the food beautiful, and I still do, it just looks different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I think instead of, am I talking to women or men right now? Or
You're
both?
talking to men, but men who are married to women, and this can be helpful for them as
It's
well, so
both. Yeah,
it's all
I
good.
think men need to understand the way that we think, but, I think it's really leaning into how our giftings and how they're individually and honoring the others. Like, honor the other person's giftings and desires because you actually do need it. Like, I need a strong leader that is I tell them all the time, I'm like, I was really good in school. Like, all through college, that's how I learned and I thrived in it. He did not. He struggled the whole way through, but I'm so grateful because he wasn't thinking that way, and I think, "Where would my life be right now?" Because I just feel like I fail at so many things that he's so good at now.
Mm,
But anyways, I would just say lean into your spouse's giftings. Don't get frustrated with them.
mm,
When you even say that, it reminds me of a couple that we coach, and that, so two thoughts I had. She wanted to have friends over,
Mhm.
and she asked him to fold 3 blankets. And because it's not his quote unquote gifting, he's like, "No." But really what we have to again remember as men, we're called to serve and to sacrifice. And so it might not be my gifting to fold a blanket. Matter of fact, you've told me not to fold towels because I do it wrong.
That's true.
But it's a sacrifice to say, "Okay, I'm gonna put down the TV remote or whatever we're doing. I'm not gonna mow the lawn right now. I'm gonna serve you because what you want."
Mhm.
But then also, will you share when you told me, like, pretty much, how can you be such a good leader at work, but then come home and is like, you don't see like I see?
mm, mm,
Eh Yeah, I remember that conversation. Um, I mean, he was who he is today, very driven. And we've church planted for a really long time, but this was the season of like the first time doing it. And so there's a lot of things to figure out. There's no like cookie cutter for anything, I feel like. You can get ideas, but they never necessarily work. And so there was a lot of like You gotta figure things out. You gotta like, we're YouTubing stuff, we're Googling things. He would figure it out. And then he would come home and be like, dead as a doorknob in his brain. I'm like, "What are you do I know what you do at work. Why is it that the switch turns off when you come home?" And I honestly don't remember your response. Maybe it was internalized and you really thought about it, but it flips and here's the thing, it was not I don't think it was. Maybe it was. Like, how did that make you feel? Because I don't feel like I was condemning you.
No, you weren't.
It was a legit question like, "Wait a minute. You are super successful at work and you do a really great job, but, like, you come home and it's like, "Dur, dur, dur."
Yeah. And it did. It helped me recognize that because I think as men, especially when we grow up in our homes, we're so used to our moms doing everything that now we can put that expectation on our wife. But God did not give us them to be our moms. There's times when we're sick and they do mother us, and Chrissy's working on that because she's like, just get over it, get out of bed.
So bad at it.
But she's my wife and we're a partner. And so that hit me. I'm like, right, if this is a business partnership right now between my wife and I in our home, am I pulling my weight in the home? And so that's really what impacted me of like, I wanna make sure I pull my weight. And again, some guys out there, you might be like, "Well, I pull the weight of the finances in the home." But there's a difference. Like, when you provide, without presence, again, that's just transactional. But when you have presence, but you're not providing, that's just potential without responsibility. We have to have both. We have to be presence driven and also we have to provide. And
Mm.
so I'm working, I'm providing, but also then when I'm home, I'm presence driven. What's going on? Does the trash need to be taken out? Does it need to be vacuumed? Does the bed need to be made? Does Chrissy just need a foot rub? Does she just need her back rubbed? Like last night, we're sitting at
Yes,
the dinner
yes, I
table. And after dinner, I just stand up and I'm just rubbing her shoulders and she just puts her head down and I just do it. And my kids are throwing balls at me. They want to play, they want to all this stuff. I'm like, after I'm done rubbing mommy's shoulders. Cause just like what you said, Mitchell, because she's number one. Like literally, like I'm telling my daughter, you need to find a husband that is going to rub your shoulders when the kids are throwing balls at his head and all chaos is like you're his number one, right? And again, just like you said, that goes through us actually modeling that and not just saying, "I'm gonna be about it one day." Like
Mm.
like 2 men, I would say, like, you have to be about it today. Like, you're not just one day gonna be the husband that you aspire to be. It starts today. The decisions start today. It's the little things we just talked about, the little disciplines, the little habits of saying, "I'm doing this today." And I loved what you said, Mitchell, lower the bar. If you can't do these grandiose things, lower the bar. And guess what? Once you start doing them, then move up a level, then move
Yeah.
up a level, then move up a level. Because we know this, there's no win in comparison. For anyone listening and watching, they're looking at your life, Mitchell, they're looking at our life. And if you're comparing your life to ours, there's no win in comparison.
Yeah.
I love what you said earlier. Where your feet are at, be there.
Mhm.
Be in your home. How can you raise the bar in your home? How can you love your wife more? How can you serve more? How can you see her more? And be there. And
Yeah.
then and even asking her, like, that's one of the biggest things, like, "How can I serve you more?" I've asked Chrissy that before. We have this conversation of just like, "Hey, what do you find sexy?" What she finds sexy is very different than what I find sexy. But I don't know that because I'm like, "Oh, you know what I find sexy? When she touches me, so she must like it when I just grope her."
Mhm.
And let me tell you, she doesn't. And they're
Yeah, that's
conversations we just have to have.
yeah, that's so funny. A lot of conversations I have with guys, like, I don't know how to come on to my wife, going back to how we started this conversation. And I said, "When was the last time you asked her?" She's the best coach, right? So ask her, "How do you want me to connect with you? How do you want me to engage with you? How do you want to be touched? When do you want to be touched? What does it look like?" And then please coach me in how to do this. Why? But we don't, right? We're like, oh, okay, we make up this game plan. We think it's going to work based off of no track record. And then we try it. We get up the courage to do it. And then she shuts us down. And then we're like, and we sulk and we get that Eeyore energy and we back away. And then that's it. You know what I mean? And I said, "We just ask her." It's funny you mentioned what Chrissy said to you because my wife said to me, because I was in the church planning world for quite a few years as well. when I started out in leadership. And one day I came home and my wife said, "You know, everybody at work gets the Mitch buffet, and you come home and you give me the scraps, and I'm tired of it." And for me, that was a turning point for me, because I was like, "What kind of man gets on a stage and leads people and speaks and blah blah blah," you know? And I can even use that to kind of get up on my own moral high horse, because I remember early on in our marriage, I would say, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with me." I'd be like, I listen to people for a living. That's what I do. Don't tell me I'm not a good listener. I'm a great listener, right? I, I was the worst. I was the worst person. But it was because, again, we're applying those things, and I was emptying myself completely, and I was coming home and giving her trash. And it was tough. And it's we talk about that role shift in marriage, or what happens is when you made a reference to treating your wife like when your wife becomes your mom. And I think that you can tie that back to intimacy as well, because there is this dynamic shift that happens when we go from husband and wife to mother child, right? Where as the old joke is, my husband's my third kid, you know, she's always cleaning up after you, picking up after you, and all that kind of stuff. Nobody, nobody wants to have that kind of relation. I'm sure, Chrissy, nobody wants to have that relationship, you know. But what happens is men become children in the marriage, and then the wife loses respect for the man, and the man feels it, and he feels like, I feel like I'm kind of a pain in the butt. I'm a nuisance in my own home. I'm not respected. And then they get frustrated, but they're not acting respectable. And so intimacy breaks down because a wife doesn't want to sleep with a man who feels like her child, right? And a man doesn't really want to sleep with a woman who feels like his mom. You know what I mean? And so we see this total relational dynamic, this dynamic shift, where when I work with my clients, it's like, okay, let's stop making your wife your mom, and let's raise you up so that you can at least be on the same level as her, and that you guys can get garner that mutual respect and love and nurture the relationship instead of this. You know what I mean? Does that resonate with you guys?
No, yeah, I actually wanna add to that because as you're saying that, like, when we don't have to treat you as a child, like, when we don't have to take care of you and we don't have to pick up after you, we actually want to.
Mm.
Like, we want to pour out that onto our spouses, but when we have to, it is the worst.
Mhm.
It again, it's just like this overflow in us because we do have that nurturing side of us as women, but when we have to do it, I'm telling you right now, it is not sexy, and I don't want to,
That's
but I
good.
love to do it when I don't have to.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. You guys, this has been okay. You know what? I got one more question. This is so good. I don't want to stop it. Uh, one question though. I got so much work to do in my marriage. Oh my goodness, this is so good. Such a good reminder. We've used the term like, lead. Your home, step into that. Masculinity, whatever. And I recognize that there may be people who are listening. Are like, whoa, 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 we're equal partners here. He's not the leader. I'm not the, whatever. Um, when we talk about like leadership, healthy masculine leadership in a modern marriage, right? Where do you think, what is it? How can a man do that? Because in my experience, men are just really confused about how to show up and how to be a masculine, confident man in marriage today. And that's for a lot of reasons, which we don't have time to get into. But how can a man kind of step into that position in his relationship? I, I'm asking both of y'all.
I mean, it is very complicated, but if you don't understand biblical principles and how it works, like, women get so caught up on this whole helper thing. I'm just and I try not to roll my eyes at them, but they just don't understand. If you look at biblical context, when God calls us the helper, that same word helper is used to describe God himself to help Israel.
Mm,
Is God lower than Israel? Is he like, less than? No. He is there to help them. And so when a man becomes a leader in the home, our help is significant. It's not lesser than. And so you just don't understand it biblically that's if that's the conversation that's happening, right?
Mm.
You just need to dig into the word and understand it. And I do think it looks different in the home because personalities are different. You don't have to have this domineering personality as a man to be the masculine leader in the home.
Mhm.
You need to be wise. You need to be like aware of situations in your home. As women, I could take care of this house by myself. I could do all the things. Like women can do, we have the capability of doing that thing. But there's this lady that we follow. She is not a Christian. She's a doctor and super into science. And she wrote a book called Fasting Like a Girl. And um she's actually come out, and it's really difficult to say because of this whole feminist movement and you know this you know all the things. And she's actually saying she said, "Listen, my mother was a independent woman, a strong independent woman who raised a strong independent woman who is raising a strong independent woman. But scientifically, women with our hormones and the way that our body is physically created, we were not meant to take on the role of being the main provider of the family. That stress was not made for our bodies physically. I'm not talking about capabilities. I'm not talking about emotionally, mental. Like, can we do it? Absolutely. We've seen women do it, but we are not physically meant to take that on. And so when we try to take that role, and I'm not even saying like the financial provider, but everything else that comes with that like masculine role, we were not meant to take on. And then it pulls us out of the femininity of what we're actually to provide. And so understanding that about ourselves and wondering why am I so stressed out? Why are these things happening to me? Why am I feeling this way? I'm going to tell you because you're holding on to things and you're carrying things that are not meant for you to carry.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if that answers the question, but like when we truly understand our role as wives and women and we allow our husbands to do that thing, like I started to say, it's out of personality. It has nothing to do with personality. You don't need to be this loud, boisterous, domineering man. You just need to be aware. You need to be ahead of it visually or like visionarily. Is that a word?
We'll make
Well,
it one.
you got to be ahead of it. You got to be ready to see what's coming, right? So that us as women can nurture in the midst of it and do
Mm.
what we know how to do best and take care of it here because we know that you see what's coming. You're ready
Mhm.
for any impact that's coming, right? You already see it coming, so we can stay here and be safe here, knowing that you've already got it.
I think, yeah, and really what you're explaining is the masculine essence versus the feminine essence. Like, when we truly understand how we're wired to live and to coexist in our most basic essence of what it looks like to be a feminine woman and a masculine man. Now, we can have men who are highly feminine and less masculine. We can have women who are more masculine and less feminine. But I'm talking about your essence, like the essence of, that masculinity versus femininity and how different it actually is. And what it looks like when the couples actually step into and embrace and live out of that role. I think it's a healthy thing. That's important. It's important to understand.
And
I
I
think
have
that's
a
where
strong voice. Like my husband, like if I'm truly passionate about something, I'm gonna tell you.
Mhm,
And we'll get into like this thing, but knowing ultimately like he does have the final say, it actually brings relief to my life because if there is something significant that we're called to do and I have an opinion and he has an opinion, the weight's on him. Like
mm,
he's got to answer to God for it, not me. But
mm.
I have a strong voice. Like I'll say some things, right? Not in a mean way.
Hey, real quick, we're going to get back to the episode, but I want to give you a free gift today. So if you're here and you're listening to this and you have been having a hard time in your marriage, maybe you and your wife just feel like really great roommates. You haven't had fun in a long time. You're just kind of getting caught up in chores and the to-do list and dropping the kids off and picking them up. I've got something called the Roommate Remedy, which is a free PDF. It's a guide for you. It's 113 ways to have fun with your wife and spark intimacy again. And this guide is going to teach you and your wife. They're going to give you a ton of different ways to have fun. So that's totally free for you. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have the link in the comment section below. But if you're listening on audio, just hit up dadnationco.com/remedy for this free guide for you. Listen, I believe in the marriage model. I believe in you and your wife. You can do this. I'm rooting for you. All right, let's get back to the episode. No, I love it, I wanted to say this about you, Chrissy, as you were speaking. I'm like, man, you probably get this often, but there's just such like a gentle, peaceful but strong like strength about your countenance. I love it. Like you just you're like drawing me in. If you're listening uh on audio, then you need to watch the YouTube because there's something about how you communicate
My
and the
facial
intensity in
expressions.
your I don't know. I think it's great. So I affirm there's a ton of strength in how women can show up. So Joe, what about you, man?
I was just gonna affirm what you said about Chrissy. This past week, she preached and, her message was just so good. One of our staff members texted me, I mean, 3 minutes into her message and literally with, like, tear emojis, like, she's got me crying because she's so good about being personable, but also direct in a way of saying, like, "Hey, I see where you're at. I'm gonna have empathy for you, but I'm not gonna let you sit in that." And
Mhm.
that's why I think she does that great with me personally. I mean, there was a couple months ago now, I flipped out on somebody, just attitude, anger, all the stuff, and anyways, a week or 2 goes by and Chris and I are on a date. I'm like, "Hey, I feel like you haven't been yourself." And you can tell when your spouse isn't themselves. She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm just gonna talk to you about it, but we probably shouldn't on a date." I'm like, "Well, I can tell, and so I don't want to just keep waiting." And so we sat down and we're having the conversation, and she just shared with me, "Feels like you're getting frustrated really easily." But the way that she did it, again, I just summed up an hour-long conversation into 30 seconds. The way that she did it was so approachable. It wasn't, demoralizing. It wasn't condemning. It wasn't that she's better than me. It was none of those things that sometimes we can do no matter if we're the wife or the husband because we're better at it or we've moved past it. We might come across it a way of, "Oh, well, this is why you keep messing up because 'cause you're not where I'm at yet." When wives can get like that, like what you just expressed about Chrissy, that persona of again, like, "Hey, I'm not against you, I'm for you." And what we've brought into our marriage is I'm not trying to win the fight, I'm trying to win for the marriage.
Mm,
And when we can actually start living that out and it just not being a saying that's on the wall, right? Like we see that all the time. Like, oh, okay, the vision or the mission statement, the core values, like they're on the wall, but are they lived out through the hall?
mhm.
And that's what we want in our lives. And so just what you're saying is how Chrissy would communicate something to me. And the other day we were doing a leadership teaching and we were just talking about the slogan, the elephant in the room, right? Everybody knows that saying, but can you address the elephant when it's in the rain? And what that means is that there's not always going to be the perfect moment to have the conversation. There's always going to be a storm in your marriage, something going on with the kids, something going on with the finances, something going on at work. There's always a storm, there's always rain. And so if you're waiting to address the elephant, when it's not raining, you're gonna be waiting forever, and you're just gonna start having this emotion build up inside more and more and more, and pretty soon, you're just gonna end up blowing up on them because you were too afraid to address it on a date. You were too afraid to address it when you're going through financial difficulties. You're too afraid to address it because it's that season at work and they're working late hours. You now preface it, right? Like, give them time, "Hey, when you get home from work, I think we really need to address this." And so they're ready for it. It's not just, we teach this, the 3, T's of communication: touch, tone, and timing. Like touch, like, can I touch their shoulder? Can I hold their hand? Can I touch their leg? If they pull away, we're not ready for a conversation. Tone, like what you just said about Chrissy, like when tone is high and you're coming in angry, it's like, okay, it's not time for a conversation. Take some time, decompress, get your thoughts right, get your emotions right, have the conversation. And then timing. That's the one I was just talking about. Making sure it's the right timing, because if your husband or husband, she just gets home, whatever it is, she's had a hectic day with the kids, now all of a sudden you got something you want to change in the house or address with her, and you just bam, lay it out there. She's like, yo, I need 10 minutes to decompress because I've been chasing around these little rascals all day. Like, it's not going to
Mhm.
be a good time for the conversation. And so understanding that, have the conversation in the rain, but making sure they're aware of when we need to have it and what that's going to look like, and then just being receptive. Sometimes as guys, we get defensive way too easily, too soon. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to chew on it, and let's revisit it. Because I'm sure there is some truth to it. It might not be 100% true, but usually your wife, when you have somebody that is so for you and truly understands that two become one, she's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to help you because it helps her. And so when we can walk in that humility of receiving that correction, it's just going to strengthen the relationship all the way around.
Yeah. So good. So good. Love to see you guys, and some real great tactical, practical things that we can take away from this conversation about marriage. And hey, if you're listening to this and you're married, which the vast majority of you are married men, send a link to your wives, or better yet, listen to it together and have some conversation. Pause it, have some dialogue. How can we process this together? You name it. Invite her into this journey. Last question for you guys, and I ask every guest this question. And a lot of my clients, most of my clients, I walk them through an exercise where I have them actually write their own eulogy, and they write it from the perspective of their spouse. And it's because I'm convinced that the more we think about our death, the more we are informed on how we ought to live, in our lives. And so I want you to think about just for a moment that, God forbid something happens and you both pass away, and you'll both do it at the same time together. So you don't have to be alone in this hypothetical scenario. But, you have the opportunity to be a fly in the wall, and the memorial service is over, and your kids are sitting around the table, and they're talking about mom, and they're talking about dad, and the mom, Chrissy was, and the dad, Joe was, and all those different things. What would be a couple things that you would want them to say about Chrissy, the mom you were, and Joe, the dad you were to them?
Well, I'm already crying, so you can go first. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, obviously I've thought about this before, but it's truly like I want them to be like, he loved Jesus, and that's what drew me closer to Jesus, and he loved mom, and
Mm,
that's why I want to be either the wife that I am or the husband that I am. And that's my goal. My goal is like when we're on stage and we're talking about Jesus, or we're talking about marriage coaching, or we're talking about marriage, or we're talking about leadership. Uh, when our kids go back and watch our YouTube videos and all the things, I never want them to be like, that's not who they were in person.
mm,
I want them to be like, the guy that he was on stage is the guy that he was when he was tucking me in bed at night. And
mm,
he showed me, like what you were saying earlier, really the heart of the Father, and that's why I have a strong relationship with God,
mm.
because my dad loved Jesus and my dad loved my mom.
Mm. I mean, it's very similar. Like, I want my kids to see us, like, live loud for Jesus, like, bold, courageous, even if we're afraid, like, just laying it all out for him because, like, nothing else matters. And we tell our kids all the time, they're so funny. We'll, like, tell stories of, like, who like, what we did and not all of them because 'cause they're inappropriate, but, like, before we got saved, like, stuff that he did, stuff that I did, and they'd be like, "Dad, like, why would you do that?" And he's like, "Because I didn't know the Lord." And so,
As
I
they're getting older, so this is the story that happened a couple weeks ago. We're driving down the road and our kids are like, "What's that smell?"
this is real life in the car with
Yes.
us. I was like, "Well, that's weed." "What's weed?" "Um, it's a drug you smoke." "How do you know?" "'Cause dad used to do it." "Dad!" That was literally the conversation. That literally "Well, why?" "Well,
Mm,
because."
yeah.
I didn't know the Lord. So I went that because we did. We lived for the world wildly, and I refused to live a life like that
Mhm.
and not for Jesus. And so, and then my kids felt safe in their home and that we loved each other. Like we had a true genuine like we gross our kids out all the time. And they're
Mm,
like, we'll kiss and they'll be like, "Stop," with like their eyeball showing still. We know they love it, but
mm,
we wanna show them
Mhm.
like the love of Jesus and then our love for each other. So
mm. Love that. Thank you guys for sharing. Last thing, where can I know there's gonna be people who want to consume more of your content, find you, follow you, whatever the case is. So where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, for the most part on Instagram, on YouTube, The Married Life with Joe and Chrissy. We put out YouTube and podcasts every week. Obviously, on Instagram, we put out posts and we do stories and reels and all the jazz. And then Chrissy, just this might actually help some guys that are like, hey, I'm trying to build this foundation with my wife, this vision, right? We have vision for our work, vision for the organization, vision for the business. So she put together, it's called the Blueprints of Marriage. And it's a vision retreat workbook for your marriage.
Wow.
And it's how to actually build the marriage of your dreams. And we just had somebody message us on Instagram asking, like, hey, we're going on a retreat together. Do you have any insight what we could do? I'm like, yep, you need this
sure
book.
do.
You know, it's on Amazon. So I'll put the link, I'll give you the link so then you can share with the audience. But we suggest people take 3 days, get away and go through it. Spend half of the morning actually answering questions, and the second half of the day just spending time with your boo. Just enjoy her, enjoy him, spend time together. But definitely making sure that you're investing in your marriage because again, it's like it's your North Star. You have to build the house that you want. It just doesn't happen.
Mm. Love that, you guys. Man, I'm gonna get me one of those. Me and my wife are going away in a couple months here for a few days, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to work through that. So you guys, listen, you've heard their story, and I hope that this episode has been powerful and impacting. These guys are also marriage coaches, so if you were looking for help coaching, working through things, whatever the case is, reach out to them. All their information is going to be in the show notes below. Find them on Instagram, the website, the blueprint, all the things. Just get into their circle. So, thank you, Joe and Chrissy, so much for joining me on the Dad Nation podcast today. I appreciate your time. This has been a powerful conversation.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Okay, we'll catch up soon. Wow, what an incredible episode. Listen, if you are watching on YouTube today, I want to hear from you, okay? Leave it in the comments below. What was the big takeaway for you? What was that big aha moment? And let's start the conversation. If you've listened to this episode and you've decided that you want help today, if you need coaching, if you need some resources, feel free to please reach out to me. My email is mitchell@dadnationco.com. My website is dadnationco.com. You can hit me up on Instagram @dadnationco. And I've got a ton of resources for you. I'm here to help you, support you in any way I can, and to serve you in a powerful way. So check those links. I'll have them posted below. But other than that, listen, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. Have an incredible week. We'll catch up soon.